Really excited to have Google here as well today. We've been doing holiday webinars with Google for over a decade. It's a nice time to get ourselves kind of geared up. Um, so we're gonna basically cover three main areas today. First is you got Google, but Google works off of data. There are all these building blocks between your first party data, your setup for conversion, your feed. We're gonna make sure those essentials that you need to get right now, especially if you've got some technical challenges, you gotta do that ASAP. Just make sure you know exactly what you gotta get done. Then Google has shared with us some really interesting ways in which they anticipate behavior and cycles and types of buyers throughout the rest of this year. So you can start to plan a little bit different for not just cohorts, but for periods of time and different buying behaviors. Really exciting stuff. We love the content. Really happy we can bring it to you guys as well. And finally, for those of you who are Agital fans and Agital clients and Agital followers, you know that we have been pushing digital marketing into a new era. We want people to stop thinking one channel at a time, but accept the fact that there are these 15 different channels or more that you're investing in, that it's getting chaotic, that the measurements and attributions are getting a little formulaic and different from each other. It's tough to manage. So we're offering a new way to manage this, to organize the chaos and just have discipline around the 5 desired outcomes that you want from all of your marketing, so that each of those outcomes and those activity centers gets bigger and brighter. And we're going to talk about how to make sure that your Google holiday plan fits that paradigm, so you can have that intersectional approach with all your other channels and drive the best results you can possibly get for this holiday season. Before we go live, just wanted to get a quick poll going. Let's see what people's thoughts are about the type of things that they're thinking about improving before the holiday season really picks up. The data feed is using the right tools like the Power Pair, getting your first party data in order. Maybe 2 or more of those things. We will close this out in, let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's just see this. This is what your peers are thinking, right? 31% goes to 2 or more. Awesome. The rest of it really starts to focus on deploying the right ad types and tweaks and execution side. Fantastic. 20% of you are a little bit curious about whether your feed is all set up correctly. And 11% are thinking, well, do I really have my first party data game down as best as possible? Really helpful, really interesting stuff. Let's do some quick intros and go into it. My name is Nick Rajpal. I'm the VP of Strategy here at Agital. I've been here for 16 years. I joined when we were a design development organization, and I launched our marketing solutions, SEO, Google Ads, Bing Ads, email conversion, and Amazon helped build our processes and our tools. And the people who would join our team, who would continue to be in our team for all these years later, our 6 core services, then worked with us trying to get the best clients for what we had built. The thing is, I looked back 10 years later and realized we didn't just have 6 core services anymore. Now we had 15 services. Our clients needed to be in a lot of different places to be in front of their customers. So launched the strategy department to try to organize the chaos with our virtuous activity cycle. And honored to be on that strategy department team with Logan Durant. And He's our key presenter from Agital today.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, and hello, everyone. My name is Logan Durant. I'm our VP of Paid Media Strategy here at Agital. I've been at this company for 12 years now. I have more gray hairs than I did back then, but it'll happen, right? I have had the privilege of launching our original Google Shopping and Marketplace services and teams about 10 years ago. I spent most of my time at Agital leading our paid advertising departments, and now I put strategies together for most of our largest clients who come onto Agital paid advertising. So happy to be here and excited for this webinar today. And I'll hand it over to Jake for your intro.
Awesome. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, Nick. Hey, everyone. I'm Jake Conley. I'm an agency development manager at Google. So my role is essentially to work with some of our top agencies and work on everything from client growth, growth of the agency, sophistication, staying up to date and at the forefront of Google products, and all of the great things that Google can offer to clients and agencies like you. I've been at Google for 3 years now. Prior to my time at Google, spent 5 years at Pandora working with holding companies. And prior to that, started my career at Horizon Media. So I spent about 4 years on the agency side. Really bring a robust perspective of, being in that agency seat, as well as on the side of working with the large holdcos, the big indies, and some of the more niche PPC agencies. I've had the pleasure of working with Nick and Logan for a little over 2 years now. And it has been awesome working with Agital. So I'm really excited to bring Google's holiday perspective. I think that poll really set us up for a great conversation today, and we'll cover off on a lot of the things that you all identified as areas of improvement.
Great. Thanks so much, Jake. Yeah, I'm really excited for your content today. We're starting with a quick section of building blocks, making sure you have all the foundational pieces in place to have a really successful holiday season, and also making sure that you're deploying Google's latest and greatest AI features, campaign types. So first things first, let's talk about first-party data. Um, Everyone knows first-party data is vitally important. It's almost like a buzzword these days. Like you have to use 1P data, but where the rubber meets the road, what are the real practical applications of this? Where can you really utilize it to fuel results and fuel growth? Because most Google campaigns these days use smart bidding, these campaigns run on data. The more data you can feed them, the better they perform, and it becomes this virtuous cycle. So we want to provide these campaigns with as much data as possible, and some of the highest quality sources of that data are your own data points, your own first-party data. So we start with segmentation exercise. It's not just about getting that data into Google as one monolithic entity. If you can start to segment this data into meaningful segments, you can start to make investment strategies around it, optimize performance around it. And one of the first big things that we do is we like to segment new versus returning customers. You know that each of these customer types have an importance to the growth of your business, but we also know that we want to have different KPIs around them. So we want to pay usually more to acquire a new customer than we do to get a loyalty purchase or a second purchase from an existing customer. So drawing those clean lines between new versus returning customers is a great use case for first-party data, and it really allows you to optimize your campaigns through a different lens. The second big thing is helping to fuel Performance Max. The more signals that you can feed Performance Max, the better. And like I said, what better to feed these campaigns with than your own data? You can feed it with your customer list. You can say, hey, go after people who look like this. You can say, here are people that have visited my site. Here are people who have behaved a certain way on my website. There are a lot of audience segments you can get into, and applying these to PMax as well as other Google Ads campaigns is really vital for the success of the campaigns. And then we talked about the new versus returning, so targeting loyalty. We can deploy separate campaigns to promote cross sells, promote replenishment of products, think most people think of loyalty beginning with email, SMS. Certainly does, but we can make it a much more wide-reaching scope and target these audiences on, Google Ads, Google Display, YouTube, networks like that. So it makes for a well-rounded approach, and you really can't forget loyalty. And that's a little sneak preview of one of Jake's behaviors and segments that he'll go over in his slides. Second foundational piece is enhanced conversion tracking. This is really important. You may think like, okay, I have my conversion tracking set up. Do I really need to go back and do enhanced conversion tracking? Absolutely do. So enhanced conversion tracking helps combat some of the recent changes in the ads landscape, and one of the most important being the impending disappearance of third-party cookies. I think, they were going away, and now they're maybe back for a little while, but I think Jake would agree that there will come a time, probably soon, that third-party cookies are going to go away. So there need to be other mechanisms to help report conversion data to Google Ads, so your campaigns know, how to optimize themselves. So you know how to deploy ad budgets. So enhanced conversion tracking is going to use hashed data. So it's going to comply with the newer privacy standards that we now have to contend with. And it's going to send overall just more conversion data to your Google Ads campaigns. And part of that is going to be modeled data. So that we're going to lose a little bit of that visibility with new privacy laws. But Google has kind of stepped in and said, hey, we're going to deploy machine learning to understand and model conversions that we have a high confidence in that are happening, send them back to your campaign so we can complete that virtuous cycle and allow them to report on the data that we know, the conversions we know are happening. What that all leads to is better investments. So the more data you have, the more conversion data you have, the more these campaigns can kind of look at that and get more of the same audiences, same customers, and the better decisions that we can make as marketers to deploy budgets, set ROAS targets, and make other optimizations. All right, feeds excellence. I think I saw someone in the chat was from a data feeds company. Excited to see that here, but product feed is really vital. Everyone knows that your product feed is going to power Performance Max campaigns, it's powering Google Shopping ads, and feeds excellence is pretty vital to have in place. So if you haven't revisited your product feed in a few months or even a few years, now is the time to really go through it and make sure that it's up to snuff. First thing you want to look at is data quality. So are you sending all of the right fields, all the right data points to Google Merchant Center? Do you have, all of your titles, descriptions, brand, MPN, GTIN, size, color, material, all of those fields that are each one giving Google a vital point to triangulate, the right customers to see your products. So there's that data quality piece. You want to make sure that your products are, live, the data quality is healthy, there are no disapprovals that you're battling. Now's the time to do that instead of, looking at Cyber Weekend and saying, oh boy, some of our most important products are disapproved. The other piece is more of like a strategic optimization and strategic excellence. So that's really rooted in custom labels. So at Agital, we believe that the custom labels are really the embodiment of your Google Shopping strategy. And in here, we like to use labels like top sellers and maybe margin tier, new products, any number of strategic labels that can help identify the importance of a product, the potential business impact, and it helps guide our teams on how much investment to put towards specific products, as well as how to segment them in campaigns. So revisiting your label strategy, you might have some top seller labels from 2019 that you haven't revisited in 5 years. It's time to do that, and we have a feeds technology that dynamically does a lot of labeling and keeps top sellers up to date. So it's one of the benefits of working with Agital on that. And then the last thing is just titles and descriptions. The ads show based on the alignment of the search term that someone's typing in, and your title and description mainly for that product. So you need to have the titles and descriptions be informative. They need to not only say what the product name is, but kind of give a little bit more detail about its category or brand or something about it that might relate back to how people are searching for it. So these are vital. And if you're having trouble with Performance Max or Google Shopping ads, the feed is sometimes one of the best places to look at first. All right, so speaking of those Performance Max campaigns, if you haven't heard the term power pair, you'll probably be hearing it a lot more in the future. This is what Google refers to as the, kind of the North Star for the campaign types that you should be deploying within Google Ads. And it consists of a combination of Performance Max and broad match keyword targeting. And the philosophy there is that if you deploy these two, I guess one's a campaign type and one's a match type within search, you're deploying these two tools, then you will maximize your visibility in Google's ecosystem. So I think there are some things to qualify here, because if you've been in the industry as long as some of us have, we remember back in the days where broad match was always a no go, like never deploy broad match. It doesn't work. It'll just spend money and not perform. But with the advent of Google's AI-powered algorithms, it has come a long way, and it performs much better than it did in the past. So Google's algorithm is able to look at a broad swath of searches and use large language models and comparisons and ontology to really understand the search intent and help show your ads when they're most likely to hit your goals, whether they're conversions, purchases, whatnot. So it's not the old school broad match. For Performance Max, I think these are everyone knows Performance Max probably who's on this webinar. These are Google's like cross-channel campaigns that kind of deploy ads not only on Google Shopping and search, but across other services like display, YouTube. So they're really good at capitalizing on inventory that you might not have had access to. But I think people are having a hard time really wrangling Performance Max and appreciating the differences between PMax and old standard shopping campaigns. So we have a special playbook with Performance Max where we deploy it in a specific way, especially if you have a larger catalog where it starts to get a little bit more complex with the segmentation and where these campaigns are spending. So with any of these, it's not enough to really just deploy them. You have to optimize them. Broad match, you have to add negative keywords still should have phrase match and exact match terms, but you start with this area of broad visibility, and then you start to create tiers and hone in that visibility so you can balance the impressions and the visibility with profitability. And with PMax, there's so many optimization features here, from having the right feed labels, the right audience signals, really good creatives to power the campaigns. There's a lot to do here, and it really is, because there are so many options, it can be hard for some merchants to get it right. So we've had several years now of Performance Max under our belt, and we feel like we have a really solid methodology that drives growth and addresses some of the big hurdles I think people face when they transition to this campaign type. Excellent. So speaking of that creative that drives PMax, the right creative assets are really vital to have as a foundational building block. So it's not just I would say 5-6 years ago is really about winning on the Google search results page for shopping and search, and it's gone so far beyond that these compelling creatives are really a must. Google has made it a lot easier for us in the last year to create and deploy these creatives. So things like the Creative Studio, where we can quickly create images based on AI prompts. It's been really life-changing. Creating sale images and really anything. It's been highly effective and in a really amazing way to help scale creative within PMax. But don't forget about videos as well. So I think whether you're deploying a YouTube campaign or using videos to bolster Performance Max, videos are really vital. If you don't have your own videos, Google will make them for you. But I think ideally you'd want to kind of have a little more control and make these videos yourself to help fuel um, Performance Max conversions and just help that full VAC approach. And the last thing with creative is making sure that you're aligning the audiences and the messaging to that creative. So we have a whole messaging methodology here at Agital that says your customer base likely is not monolithic. They are probably coming to you with different needs, different behaviors. They're going to react to different stimuli and different messaging. We have 4 modalities that we tap into for this: competitive, methodical, spontaneous, and social. Each of those modalities have different behaviors and different messaging that can kind of activate them and prompt people to take the next step. So that's really vital. It's not just the creative itself, but how you're messaging it, what the call to action is, how you're speaking to those potential customers. And my last slide before we turn it over to Jake for some red hot Google insights and frameworks for the holidays, media mix modeling. So when we think about planning for holiday, figuring out how much you're going to spend is a really big part of that. And we have a media mix modeling tool that we've developed at Agital. Big props to Chris Charzik on our team, our director, VP of data and analytics. Really pioneered this and championed it. It's a super powerful tool that really allows you to get to the heart of optimizing budgets and planning budgets. What it does, it does several things. First of all, it identifies seasonality, seasonal coefficients, and obviously we're talking about this big tidal wave of seasonality that comes in Q4, but there are other seasonal impacts that most businesses have that you need to appreciate and model out. This tool will measure attribution. So it attributes revenue using regressive models to channels and sub-channels and even campaign types. And it answers the question, if we spend $1 in a certain campaign type or a certain channel, what is that impact on site-wide revenue? What's the relationship between that campaign type and site-wide revenue? The stronger the relationship, the more ad dollars we have to put into that campaign type. So it's with attribution becoming more murky and there are more channels in the mix, media mix modeling is really vital. And our methods are purely mathematical and regressive, and they don't rely on third-party cookies or anything like that. So they're kind of future-proof as well. We think about privacy. And then the last piece of what this tool can do is it can forecast your performance. So like, let's say we increase ad spends by 35%. What is that? What does that demand curve, what does that diminishing returns curve look like? And can we get a lot more revenue with more ad spend if we choose to deploy it? So pretty vital to think about this budget planning with Q4, and it really helps set the table for that. And Jake, you'll be talking a lot about anticipating demand and planning for the oops, Nick and I are both trying to change the slide at the same time. The anticipating the holiday demand. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jake, for your part of the presentation.
Awesome. Who is ready to talk holiday? We have a lot of great trends, great learnings from last year, anticipations for this year, predictions, as well as strategies of how we can win the holiday season with Google. So when we're thinking about, how does Google really help marketers reach their target audience at the right time, anticipating that demand, capturing that demand, and generating that demand? It all comes down to AI. And Google's AI, whether you're aware that you're using it or unaware, you've been using Google's AI since probably before AI became cool. And when you think about things like smart bidding, when you think about things like conversion tracking, when you think about things like modeling, targeting, all of this lives within Google's AI, which has been around for decades. At its heart, Google is an AI company, and we use that to deliver the right solutions to advertisers, making the lift as low as possible and as dynamic as possible. One thing that is super important to remember is you're still the marketer. AI is just the enabler, and it's data in, data out. The output that you get from AI is only as good as the data that you put in. So what we're going to talk about today, the first thing is around what factors will influence the holiday season. So before I move forward, let's drop a few thoughts in the chat. Where do you guys think we're going to see the most factors in the holiday season that's going to influence customer behavior? Election results. It's a good guess. Cost, another great guess. Few more seconds here. Inflation. Markets at the time. Awesome. All really good guesses. Weather.
Yep, for sure.
Employment. All great guesses. So there's three main factors that we're predicting are going to drive the most influence in the holiday season. The first of which is the election year. That was a great guess, of course. Consumers' attention is going to be fragmented. We have seen in the past that election years can delay spending. However, it doesn't decrease spending. There's 5 fewer shopping days post-cyber this year than there were in the past. Consumers are facing a more condensed holiday season. And what this means is that we are going to have to find a crucial amount of revenue from our customers in a shorter time period. And then finally, I think everyone's pretty aware of this. Consumers are making harder choices. The economy is definitely taking a toll on a lot of consumers. We're seeing that consumers have reduced purchasing power. It's impacting their spending decisions. We're going to look into some key trends, some early seasonal moments, and better understand this shift. We know that consumers are relying heavily on credit, record level debt, and increasing use of alternative options, thinking the buy now, pay later, putting things on credit cards. If we understand these factors and understand how to get around these factors, we can change our approach and maximize opportunities within this holiday season. So when we're thinking through this being an election year, right? I know there's a lot of concern about the implications going into November, December, both being intent on spending and surrounding shoppers in this crucial period. The good news is that presidential elections don't lessen shopper demand. We should, however, anticipate a delayed spike. This is super important to remember because that delayed spike is actually going to line up quite perfectly with the cyber window. So when we think about an election year, we typically see the bump fall 7 to 9 days after voting day. In a non-election year, that typically takes place 4 to 5 days earlier. So again, shifting out here. And the expected shift is going to land the peak of 2024 right around November 13th to 15th, which is really important because it lands 2 weeks before cyber. So this is a window that we traditionally see acceleration into anticipated promotional periods. That's going to be condensed even further this year. When we're thinking about a condensed holiday season, we will have 5 fewer shopping days post-cyber than we have in the past. This is going to mean that it's really important to monitor early season learnings and adjust and refine. So with Thanksgiving's late arrival, we're seeing that early season spending is going to show, maybe modest growth. When we think about holidays earlier this year, we saw Mother's Day actually mark the first decline in intended spending in 6 years. However, spending did exceed expectations. So consumers are still spending, and they're actually exceeding the expectations despite what some economists think and what predictions are saying. When we're thinking about things like back to school, we were predicting slowest sales growth. However, we actually saw a good amount of growth there. When you think about Prime Day this year, Prime Day broke records on both days this year. So while we are seeing maybe estimates and predictions of slowed rates, we're actually seeing customers come in pretty strong and spending on those gift giving moments, spending on friends and family, and saving their money and actually putting it towards the things that matter most to them. So what does this mean even further, right? It suggests that we're going to see hard choices this season. We're seeing people buying on credit. There's a $50 billion increase in total credit card debt. We're seeing alternative options, a 14% year over year increase in buy now, pay later. We're seeing confidence retreat among consumers. There's a decline in consumer confidence, 6% in April, and we're seeing a pullback, especially with that younger generation. 36% of Gen Z said they're pulling back spend on takeout, gaming, and electronics. Now, why is that important? Because while they're pulling back on things like gaming, like takeout, like electronics, they're actually doing that to save money and spend on things that bring other people joy, thinking through the holiday season, gift giving. And where this is going to be super important is within the promos that you're thinking about, the way that you're approaching clients, customers, the way that you're messaging customers, and making them feel that your product, your brand cares about them, understands them, and is where they should be investing those limited dollars that they have. What that also means is being in that consideration set early is going to prove absolutely crucial when we get to that Cyber 12, where customers are really looking for that promo mentality. You need to be in their consideration set so they're actively searching for your brand, because that kind of competition is going to be so heightened this year. So what we've done at Google is broken out our holiday shoppers into mindsets. And when I say mindsets, these aren't different shoppers. These are different periods of time. So when we think about a deliberate shopper, this is early. This is September to November. When we think about deal seekers, these are people shopping during the Cyber 12. The determined folks, these are people who haven't bought their gifts yet, but they're determined to do so. They're shopping in December. They're making sure that they do get the gifts that their loved ones want and their loved ones need. And then the devoted, this is the postseason. Shoppers are shopping for themselves. They're thinking about, gifting themselves after giving so much to their friends and family. I know for myself, I unfortunately fall into this determined phase. I am frequently rushing to get presents at the end of the season, making sure I get them before the holiday. Although I would like to say I fall a bit into the deliberate phase, but I do a lot more research during the deliberate phase, whereas my actual buying behavior probably fits a little more into determined. And I think what's really interesting and what really struck me when I was going through this data is, where is purchasing power? We think so much around Cyber 12 and that being the peak period of spend, but we actually see that of holiday spend, 52% comes in that deliberate phase. So that September to November time period. And this is super important. Of course, it's 61% of the holiday days, but decisions are made during this time period. Spend is going through during this time period. During that Cyber 12, a really short window, right? Only 13%, and we're still seeing 14% of spend go through. Determined, you're seeing 26% of spend go through. And then that devoted period, a lot of advertisers forget about the devoted period. You still have an opportunity to capture 8% of that holiday spend within that devoted time period. So what we've learned is that we typically associate the deliberate period with research. However, when taking a closer look, we actually recognize that the deliberate shopper represents almost 2/3 of the holiday season, and almost half of decisions are made by the time we enter Cyber Week. Why is this important? It's important to get in front of your customers and make sure that you are top of mind early in the season. So when you are deploying those deals over Cyber 12, you're drawing in customers that already know your brand. When you have customers that are trying to get their last minute purchases in, they already know who you are. They know where they want to shop. And then when they're buying something for themselves, this really fits into that loyalty piece. They're thinking, I had a great experience with that brand. That's where I'm going to shop for myself. And when we look at some of the year over year sales growth and the average sales per day during each of these periods, we can see that all of these are growing. The biggest growth that we're seeing is actually within that devoted time frame, which is when we see a lot of people shopping for themselves. You can see down here, average sales per day, 18 billion during deliberate, 21 billion during deal seeking, 21 billion during determined, 16 billion during devoted. These are huge numbers. And what's really interesting is looking at the e-com versus the in-store piece. We see a pretty significant jump in-store during that determined and devoted time period. A lot of this is because of shipping cutoff dates. Folks need to get those gifts, and they're doing a lot of buy online, pick up in store. So thinking through the deliberate mindset, you'll see up in the top here, we see a lot of generic searches during this time period where people are trying to do their research and they're trying to figure out, who am I going to shop? What am I going to shop? And we see that this period can actually draw in a really good chunk of new customers. So this is a great time to be in that awareness, in that consideration mindset, thinking about how do you acquire new customers, get in front of customers who might not be thinking about your brand, and significantly articulate your brand value proposition so that when that cyber period comes, you are top of mind and you're the first brand that's being searched. During this deliberate season, we see that retailers need to prepare for shoppers and show up strong. So we see during this period, there is a 55% increase in the daily amount spent on purchases made in the 6 weeks before cyber. Again, holiday is starting earlier and earlier, and people want to get their shopping done and at least know where they're going to shop. We also see more purchases. We saw a 6% year-over-year jump of people saying that they'd made holiday purchases during the 6 weeks before cyber. Again, this time period is going to be crucial to make sure that you are in front of customers and you're recording as many sales as possible, as well as driving as much consideration as possible before we go into that promo period. The promo period, super important. Shoppers are ready. Shoppers are waiting. All of those shoppers who did their research during that deliberate phase but didn't pull the trigger, they're waiting to see what the promos are. And when we think about retail sales last year, we had 2 record-breaking days. We saw that 2 in 3 shoppers are holding out for retailers' discounts before buying gifts. And we're seeing that 74% of holiday shoppers are choosing where to buy based on who offered the best deals. We're actually seeing less brand loyalty and more customers being willing to try a new brand based on the price and the experience that they see with that brand. And if you remember from last year, it used to be Cyber 5. It is now Cyber 12. And the most intriguing part about this cyber period is that it is longer than that 5. It's almost 2 weeks of intense buying behavior. And when we look at data over the last few years from MasterCard, we actually see that in key gifting categories, the average spend per day on what we call the shoulder days, so those ramps in and out of cyber, are almost as high as the average of the Cyber 5 itself. We know that Black Friday is going to be far and away the biggest sale day. We know this is the biggest spending day of the season, and this is really driven by omni-channel shoppers. So not only those shopping online, but also those folks who are coming into store, going to take advantage of those deals in person. But if you're not taking advantage of the days before and after that, you're missing out on a big opportunity, especially when you're trying to reach these deal-seeking mindsets. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we should be thinking about promo strategy based on margins and based on where we see promo intent. So the highest promo intent, of course, is Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And we should be thinking about how are we doing our discounting, our promo strategy based on where does the most demand lie. We saw that last year showed steeper discounts. We saw a 5% increase in average discounts in 2023 versus 2022. There's higher expectations. 77% of customers are saying that deals and promos are important when they're deciding which retailer to shop with. This is not going to change. So we need to be very smart about how we're deploying promo strategies, making sure that we're showing up in those moments where consumers are really seeking out promo with our best offers, but making sure that we're still maximizing margins, not providing overly discounted inventory, where the demand might not be there, and then providing the heaviest discount when we know there's the most demand. But promo isn't the only thing that consumers expect when we're delivering value and creating a relationship with consumers. We see that retail behavior search growth actually changes dramatically during this time period. So we have promo, but that's not all. We also see search increases in best for. This is a personalization play. We see comparison and trading down. Trading down, a good example of this, I bought my wife a Kindle last year, and there's the Kindle Paperwhite Signature. Being a little bit cost conscious, I opted for the Kindle Paperwhite instead of the Signature, trading down a bit of value, but the value that I gave up was actually really great for the cost that I gave up. So I felt okay doing that trading down. This is where the value piece comes in. And then the last piece is this social proof. So this is the advocacy piece, right? This is where customers are going and saying, what is a review of a Spalding basketball? And this is where they want social proof. And they're doing this in multiple ways. They're not only searching on Google for social proof, they're looking on YouTube. We see a 14% year over year views for reviews and comparisons on YouTube. We see 75% of shoppers that are willing to pay more for personalized online shopping experiences. And we see 53% of consumers find it useful for brands to communicate the quality of the item that they're deciding to buy. Again, shopper behavior is changing, and there's a lot of expectations from customers, and it doesn't just rely on the price of your product. It relies on how great they feel about your brand and how well others are advocating for your brand. Moving on to the deliberate shopper, when we talked about those 5 fewer days after Cyber 12, every single day in December is going to be worth more. There is $100 billion of consumer spend that needs to be reallocated from those 5 days that we lost that is going to go into a shorter window. This period is absolutely critical to move from cyber shopping into December, into that final push and the determined shopper. This year's holiday success, more than years in the past, will be highly dependent upon the ability to win these shoppers' hearts. These consumers will have half of their shopping still to complete, but only a week's less time to do it. What this means, those 5 days, again, represent $100 billion that will need to be allocated or shifted to make up for the lost shopping window. And when we take a closer look, we want to make sure that we're thinking about this period and not underestimating it. We actually see greater growth during this period than we do during the Cyber 12 in terms of demand, clicks, average customer daily spend, and the number of top holiday spending days. This is a critical period, and while Cyber 12 is known as the milestone, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc., December holds 8 of those top spending days, and Cyber Monday last year was actually only the 15th most valuable day of the season. And then finally, moving into the last mindset here, which is the devoted mindset. This is the number one sales growth period of the entire holiday season. And this is not just Q1 through Q4. This is essentially Q5. And what we're talking about is those folks who are shopping for themselves 2 weeks post-Christmas, representing $47 billion of spend. We see more searches for beauty, consumer electronics, home and garden. All of this is happening because shoppers are shopping for themselves and not for others. Last year, end of year sales grew 9% year over year, which was outperformed Cyber 5 at 7%, as well as overall Q4 growth. When we think about consumer sentiment, 46% of shoppers believe the best deals appear after the holidays, and that fuels their post-holiday search activity. Self-gifting is dominant during this time period. 57% of holiday shopping between December 26th and January 4th last year was self-gifting. And what's really important here is having a positive mindset. 90% of shoppers report a positive mindset between December 26th and January 4th. This is coming off of the high of giving your loved ones the gifts that they really want, spending time with family. And this is when consumers go back to the brands that they had really good experiences with, and they buy things for themselves. They're developing this loyalty and they're actually becoming advocates of your brand for themselves. It's important to remember this is the fastest growing segment of the season. We see a lot of times that after Christmas, brands tend to shut off and they're actually losing out on this big opportunity. So it's really important to make sure that we are continuing to invest here, continuing to reach consumers, and continuing to drive engagement as well as purchase.
That was awesome. We're gonna ask the audience how far along you are in planning, and it's nice to see from your peers here. You've given so much to think about in terms of planning to allocate more ad spend towards the critical days in the absence of a longer period of time. To think about how people are going to trade down, etc. You actually have to create strategies around that. If people are going to be driven by reviews more, triangulating those high reviews, healthy review products, and making sure that they have been labeled and ready to go in there. There's just so much careful planning once you know what to anticipate. So we're basically saying, not started, we're in a good spot, or we just threw that in there if anyone is looking for Agital to help optimize the holiday budget. But we'll close this out, and the breakdown is half of you think that you're in a good spot, and roughly half of you have not yet started the holiday planning. So it's time to feel the pressure. 1 out of 2 of you have already felt the pressure or are creating the pressure for everyone else. So that's awesome. Logan, can you bring us home with just a few more ways to coordinate?
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Jake. Those were amazing slides. I really love the framework that you guys used this year with the mindsets. So now we want to close it out and show you how to align and marry those mindsets and how to really like put them into action, how to deploy tactics and channels and strategies to really make all this data work for you. So if you've attended a webinar before, you know that we have our agency-wide framework called the virtuous activity cycle. It's kind of the North Star of everything that we do at Agile. Every tactic, every campaign is aligned to one of the 5 marketing activities: awareness, to consideration, conversion, loyalty, and advocacy. So we think about planning strategy, optimizing budgets, and deploying different tactics. It all aligns to this framework. And what we've done is we've worked with Jake and Google to think about how these holiday mindsets align with our virtuous activity cycle. So first, we have the deliberate mindset. It aligns really well with our awareness activity, and we define awareness as the more targeted people who know about you. This phase, Jake mentioned, it consists of research as well as going to Google search and typing in different categorical searches. But here we're focusing on awareness, which really manifests in display, video, YouTube, things like that. So this is where we deploy campaign types like demand gen, video view campaigns, display campaigns. And this aligns with the methodology that we were talking about earlier, where within those campaigns, we're aligning the audience's first-party data, the creative, with our messaging modalities and making sure we get the right message to the right shopper. The next piece, the deal-seeking mindset aligns really well with conversion. So we know that we've gotten their attention, we've drummed up the interest. Now it's time to close the sale. This aligns with branded search and branded shopping results, and also any pre-purchase remarketing. So people who have made a decision, they want to buy from your brand, they're going to Google, do a branded search, or they've already visited your website and we're doing remarketing to those people, within display, YouTube campaigns. And these campaign types are underpinned by audiences, first party data. So we're looking at, people who have been to the site before, people who are maybe first purchase audiences, people that you have their email address, but they haven't yet made that first purchase. We're looking to make sure we have clean segmentation between those new versus existing customers, because hey, if it's an existing one, we want to target them separately. We know we can be a little bit less aggressive with them and a little bit more aggressive with someone who is not yet a customer of the business. And we want to make sure we hit people across all remarketing channels, so in all campaign types within Google. So it's not just about display. We have to make sure we get video remarketing within Performance Max as well. The determined mindset aligns really well. Consideration. I'm with you, Jake. I kind of, those last few weeks are, I'm in there typing in gift ideas into Google and remembering the brands that I looked at a few months ago and thought I had a lot more time to shop from. But that determined mindset aligns really well with consideration. And this is non-branded search, non-branded Google shopping ads. So this is like the crux of this is deploying PMAX, deploying that power pair, PMAX and broad match, getting the right KPIs, the right product segments, the right feed labels. This is where all that work that you've done to label your top sellers, your margin tiers, your new products, all of those labels that define product's impact to your business. This is where that all comes together and should flow really seamlessly. And that segmentation again, Performance Max is really critical. So if you're having trouble with that, you should ask us for an audit at the end of this presentation, because we'll show you, opportunities for segmentation, opportunities to make PMAX work much more effectively for you. Devoted shoppers align with loyalty. That makes sense, right? So we're looking for. Oops, we just lost the screen here. But anyway, what we're doing is we're taking those customer segments, right, and we're saying, okay, here's that existing customer base. How do we treat them differently? Can we show them cross-sell products? Can we show them products that they may need to replenish? So we can start to deploy different campaign types, across either Performance Max or demand gen, YouTube, display, showing specific products, specific messaging to those loyal customers, maybe a special offer for those customers to get them to purchase again. So this is again where feed labels come into play, for that 1P data, that those clean lines between new and existing customers. I've said it again and again. It's so important, and it allows you to really deploy that ad budget in the most effective way possible.
And so, to kind of bring it all together, we are offering a holiday Google Ads audit that Logan would prepare for your website, for your business, putting into play everything that we've talked about. Are your feeds ready? Is your 1P strategy solid? How is your conversion tracking working? Are you using the power pair? Are you using the power pair in a way that we have found to be incredibly effective? I know when we speak to people, they have agencies working with Performance Max, for example, deploying it in a way where performance is not where they want it to be. Performance Max is probably not the problem there. It is the execution of Performance Max and the strategy behind it. So those are things that we would want to review. We go through the 4 personas shared by Jake, as well as kind of the organization, the strategy, put together a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and some loose projections. But this is something we'd love to offer anyone who's interested. And we'll close this out in 3, 2, 1. And let's get to the questions now. We have a few questions here. Jake, can you see the questions as well?
I can.
Perfect. So whoever wants to take a question, let's go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
maybe
I can run through a few of these if you guys want.
yeah, go ahead, Jake. Yeah, maybe go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Ashley, your question around HIPAA healthcare spaces. I don't know which part of healthcare you're in. Performance Max for some healthcare advertisers can actually work with first party data lists because it's audience signals and not an actual customer match. That being said, there are other targeting options you can take advantage of, like affinity, custom audiences. This would be more thinking around contextual targeting, depending on what your brand does. You might know specific things about your customer and what they're interested in, and you can start to feed the signals there. The other beautiful part about Performance Max is it learns. So it's going to continue optimizing based on where conversion is happening, and it'll start to know what a converting customer looks like, and it will start to optimize the campaign to serve to more customers that look like that, regardless of what type of targeting you have in place. The audience signals, the more prescriptive we can get with those, the faster the algorithm learns and the better you'll see results up front. But it is always in learning mode. Andrea, a great example of how you've used AI to segment web or customer audiences to help improve year-end campaigns. I think the Agital team could probably give a couple of good examples here. One thing that I've seen that works really well is as we get towards the end of the holiday season, you might have inventory that you're having a hard time offloading, or that isn't selling well. We sometimes recommend campaigns that we call zombie SKUs, which would be putting all of those all that inventory that's not selling that you're actually okay with parting at a significant discount, be it ROAS or CPA, and putting that into its own campaign where you're willing to take a bit of a hit because you want to offload the inventory. Agital team, I'm not sure if you have any other good examples that you've done in the past.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. The reason to use AI to create audience segments is if the variables and the attributes that you want to segment people by are not overtly obvious, right? So like one of the things that we've started to do is it's still experimental, is using clustering to take groups of people, put them into various audience clusters based on a certain behaviors, people that take in behavior X on a website or behavior Y on a website. That's something we're starting to do. It's definitely still experimental, but I think it's something you'll see more and more, that AI will be able to create audience segments that you wouldn't naturally think of.
Great. And I think the Agital team's run through of feeds and custom labels is also another way that you can really get creative with the AI there. Quinn, I see you have a couple questions here. I'll try and answer these one by one. When do we recommend introducing promos? November 1st to front run or wait until Thanksgiving? My guidance here is at the very least starting the promo strategy within those shoulder days that we discussed. So the 5 days before and after the Cyber 5. This all depends on your business, your profitability goals, where you can start to take a hit on margins, and thinking about where does that break even exist when demand is starting to increase, right? And I think the beginning of November is actually a good time to still drive that last minute consideration before they start to, really look for discounts on those shoulder days. Question 2, speaking of holiday demand, a friend of mine at Google said holiday searches have started sooner than expected in August. Are you seeing the same trend? It's funny. We come to this presentation every year and we tell everyone that holiday is starting earlier than ever this year, and 2024 is no different. We are definitely seeing a spike in holiday demand that is starting earlier than we have in the past. And, I think that's just going to continue more and more, especially with the economic pressures. People are really trying to get ahead of when they're going to spend and where they're going to spend. And the holiday searches at this point might not be as much about converting, but it might be more in that research phase, that figuring out what brands they're going to go to, and then waiting to deploy those budgets once the sales period starts. Question 3, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've noticed that Google's enhanced conversions has become a lot better at tracking conversions. Anything recent that has changed on your end that might explain this improvement? So Google's enhanced conversions is a product that, and the privacy sandbox in general is a product that Google is investing a lot of technology and resources into. I'm really glad that you're seeing it getting better. It should be getting better. The team is actively working on making this product as effective as possible. Anecdotally, things that I think might have changed: people opting out of cookie tracking more, people spending more, people buying more things. The more conversions that enhanced conversions can observe, the more they'll be able to record. The less cookies that they're reliant on, the more conversions they'll be able to record and match that hash data in a privacy-centric way. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint it to one specific thing, but think through the combination of resources, technology going to improve the product, privacy sandbox being at the forefront of Google investment, and more customers starting to opt out of cookies and seeing a lot less reliance on those third-party cookies.
Awesome. Jake, thank you for answering all those questions for everyone. And for amazing content. Logan, thank you for your content today. Folks, thank you for taking time on a Wednesday to meet up with us. A lot of work for a lot of people ahead. So I hope everyone has a phenomenal holiday shopping season this year, and let's break all records, guys. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone, bye.